Hey everyone, it's Jen with Spirited Saturdays, and this week we're talking about challenges that we had to face in our own recovery and how we might apply those tactics that we use to overcome those challenges, how you can apply them. So, um, one of the things that was a challenge to me in my recovery was comparing myself to others. I think that I inherently had this need and this tendency to do that from when I was a kid. And I think that when I developed an eating disorder, it just like all got concentrated into comparing eating disorder related things like body, mostly looks and body. So, but I think that because that is just so rooted in insecurity, or it was for me, I already did that in other ways. So from the time I was little, I was comparing myself to others, feeling like I didn't measure up for whatever reason. Whether it be it could have been looks, it could have been just something about lifestyle. I mean, as I got older, it changed, but like relationships, friendships, um, other people, like comparing my friendships even to other people's friendships at times, comparing just, you know, over time it's been comparing like where I am in terms of being on track in my life, comparing that to other people and feeling like, there's like this one thing, there's this one way to be, and if I'm not that, then I'm not good enough. But then there's also like comparing myself to other people that I felt were very special people, very outstanding people. And because I wasn't outstanding, but because I didn't feel like I was, because I didn't feel like I was, like I had anything outstanding about myself, that then I wasn't good enough. And then that other person that I thought was amazing and outstanding deserved to be noticed and deserved to be seen and deserved to love herself, and I didn't deserve it. This actually saying this makes me very sad that I actually felt this way. But I think that that was a lot to handle, not being able to compare, not being able to just own who I was and identify myself as me. And I think that probably the eating disorder um, was like a way of managing that, or maybe coping, or maybe concentrating that all that energy, because it's pretty exhausting, like just, but to it almost simplified it and almost made it tangible, like I'm not good enough because I'm not as thin as that person, or I'm not good enough because my body doesn't look like that person, or that person's, or whatever it might be. So, but I think that it all comes from the same place, and it all comes from this feeling of not feeling like I was a whole person unto myself, and feeling like something was missing from me, and feeling like other people that I met had that. They had that wholeness. So maybe I was jealous. Maybe I felt inferior. So there was a lot of comparing that I've done over my life, and that played out in various ways. Um, but I think that the way that I chose to, or that I dealt with that, and that the way that I overcame that, which I didn't start to do until I recovered. Still, I started recovering from my eating disorder, was to try to see others as, um, I'm not sure how to say this, but like basically my friend, a random friend, just a random person that I'll pick in my head, like this person that I'm thinking of in my head, um, is not this is not it's not just her relationships. It's not just her job. It's not just her choices. It's not just her. She's not just her body. She's not just her personality traits. She's a whole person, and she is her. She's like, insert her name, like just a random arbitrary person. Like insert that person's name, and that's who that person is, and that is who she carries in this world, and that is regardless of fluctuation, regardless of change, regardless of any kind of development, regardless of any kind of mistake. She remains her. She remains her. She remains the energy that she exudes from the inside, and so it doesn't really matter what she looks like, because that's so now and just so entwined with her. I'm just looking at her, so it doesn't matter to me anymore. There are so many facets of a person that I think to pick one and have that define a whole person and have that be a reason to like a justification of why you're not good enough is doing yourself a terrible disservice. I think it's important to remember that a person is a whole person without with just as they might have something incredible about them, they might also have something that they really struggle with, and they also might have something that interferes with interpersonal relationships, or there are two sides. There's a flip side to every good. I don't want to. Well, there's like the underside of a good quality. There's the underside of. There's the opposite. So there's like something that a person might not be engaging that you might not see, because that's not their dominant trait that they're showing to the world all the time. But there are, nobody is perfect, as probably an oversimplification of the whole thing. But nobody is perfect, and so I had to learn that when I saw a person, I was just looking at that person, and that person had nothing to do. That person's life, that person's looks, that person's personality has no bearing on me. It's like I don't have to get entangled in that. I don't have to intertwine with that at all, because just as I'm saying about them, regardless of fluctuations, regardless of anything, they're still them. They're just them. Like, it just kind of ceases to matter what they look like or what, because they're just them. If I know them and I trust them and I value them, they're beautiful across the board, no matter what. So, I like to try to put that on myself. It's just like, I'm me, and if I'm me all by myself in a room, and as soon as I come into contact with another person, that's no excuse for me to devalue myself in any way. I might be different around different people, but that's just because different people extract different parts of my personality, but it doesn't mean that I'm being any less myself. And so I'm always a whole person, and what I maybe look like in comparison to someone else is absolutely irrelevant, because that person that I have a friendship with, or that I have a relationship with, or that I care about, is looking at me the same way I'm looking at them, which is not, which is, I'm just me. I'm just me. I'm just a whole person. I'm just Jen. And that's all. And people in my life have seen me, people that I've known for a long time have seen me at various stages of my life, at various fluctuations in my body. I mean, in various fluctuations in my looks, in various fluctuations of my personality, in various, I've grown in many ways, and I have made mistakes, and they've seen me across the board, and never once have I been any less Jen, except when I was, deeply in the eating disorder and people couldn't see me anymore. I was, hidden behind the eating disorder, and didn't really feel like I wasn't exuding myself anymore. But even then, I was still me. I was just me with an eating disorder that, I was me with something that I had to overcome. And I was never gone completely, because if I were, I would have died. And so I was always there. There was always a little room for a fight. and that was me coming out. And so, you know, it took a very special person to be able to look past and to find the little bits and pieces of me that were still there. But they were there, and so yeah, so it's just, I would suggest, if you struggle with this, and it is something that I've struggled with, like, you know, post eating disorder recovery, like, you know, I just as a tangent, but I, like, before the eating disorder, when it was kind of still like, you know, I would just pick anything and everything to compare myself to about a person. And then it became so focused on weight and so focused on looks. And in the aftermath, it didn't mean that that problem just went away. It's something that I had to continue to work on. But it stopped being quite so much about looks. It started kind of dispersing again to, like, where am I in my life? Oh, this person is here in her life. So, like, and I started feeling inferior, especially since the eating disorder does kind of stunt you developmentally for a little bit, but you can catch up. I mean, you know, that's not a reason to buy into any of this. The eating disorder, just like any illness, can stunt you in a variety of ways. But I think that too is one of the challenges, is overcoming that and catching up with yourself, and learning new things and discovering new things and appreciating life in possibly an even grander way, because you lost that time, or so it seemed. So the comparing thing, you know, what I would suggest to people who are still struggling, with that in any kind of a level, you know, you are just, I know it's going to sound so simple, but you're you. I mean, I think it's so important to acknowledge that, and to acknowledge that the people in your life aren't, the people who care about you, the people who value you, are not looking at you as the, I'm not looking at you as who you are in comparison to them. They're looking at you because they love you, and that is all that matters, and that is the root of it. You know, and so this is really a projection of the kind of acceptance I think that people need to have, like the acceptance of, you know, as you go throughout your recovery, maybe, you know, maybe things will fluctuate in your life, maybe, you know, maybe your weight will fluctuate, you know, maybe, you know, but there's this unconditional acceptance that I think really needs to be attained in order to maintain recovery, because once you have that core acceptance, then no matter what kind of fluctuations, you won't love yourself any less. It won't devalue you. And so I say those are the kinds of values that I think we all need to keep practicing. Is like, you know, we are whole people. We are just us, and we have our own identity no matter what happens, no matter what changes, and other people have their own identity, and their identity doesn't have to determine how deserving we are of accepting ourselves. They're them, and we're us, and that's okay. And no matter what happens, we deserve, or we have a right to claim ourselves, our identity, and our wholeness. And they respect us, and we respect them. So comparing is so futile, and it's so harmful and toxic, and that's something that I've learned, is to try and stop doing that, and to try to just embrace who I am and see what other people see in me, and just live according to my values, and wherever that takes me is great, and it's deserving of my self-love. Not seeing myself from the outside in, not determining who I am based on external markers or how I think other people see me, because then it's like empty. You're operating kind of from this empty place, but developing that from your core, from inside, and seeing yourself as this rich person from the inside out, and that's unconditional. So I hope this helps, and any questions or anything like that, feel free to send them my way, and I'll see you next week. All right, take care.